Rock's 10 biggest posers. Rock music is almost about being a poser, right? So when we start to think of the 10 biggest posers in rock music, and I think, well, is Dave Lee Roth a poser? Well, he is a bloody poser, isn't he? But he's an authentic poser. Who's he posed as? Dave Lee Roth. I'm sure I think with Dave Lee Roth, he's like that 100% of the time. But there's certain characters in rock music, isn't there? Certain characters that when you look at them, you feel like, I don't know, you seem to be, punching above your weight, really. You're trying to pretend to be more than you are. So the poser title covers the pretentious. We also have ones that are a little bit too much over the top, to be a little bit too reliant on the pose and not as reliant on the talent and ability. That's the poser as well. What else could a poser be? They could, I don't know, really be selling you a lie, right? And nobody has ever called it out. So I came up with this idea of rock's 10 biggest posers. We've got a couple in here that you wouldn't class as rock, but they're mainly rock. I've got no Lady Gaga on this list, but I do think she's a poser. She's a very talented lady, but I do feel she's a bit of a poser, right? And I feel that that lineage that comes from Marilyn Monroe down to Blondie through to Madonna, with a little bit of what's the name for Missing Persons, Del Bozio thrown in. Right, now you could say they're influences. Yeah, except I don't think Lady Gaga is Madonna. I don't think she is Debbie Harry. It's too fluffy. It's too light. Okay? It hasn't got the real danger, especially in this day and age. But I don't want to criticise Lady Gaga. To be honest, I don't really care about bloody pop music anyway. I'm a rock guy. I'm a jazz guy. And I'm a prog guy. Now here, these are mainly coming from the world of rock, but there's one person that I'm going to call a poser who I do like, and I think he's a great artist. Some of these I do like. After the times when I'm doing these videos, I don't like the people. When I do my 10 people I hate, it's because I hate their music. That's why I do it. Here, I'll tell you how much I like the music, and some of them I like quite a lot. But they're posers. And so this is its own category. I've also started to think of posers. There's no Van Morrison. Van Morrison's not a poser. There's going to be no Van Morrison on here because he's not a poser. Right? There's going to be no Patti Smith. She's not a poser. They're authentic. Authentically crap they are, though this is different. So with this list, as we go through it and rank it, and there's going to be all these different journeys, all these different poserishness that we're going to explore on this video, I have to sort of start up with a straight down the line bit of a poser, which will illustrate what we're talking about. So you go, I understand now, you've said number 10, I understand what you're talking about. Right, so this is straight down the line. So at number 10, I've got Greta Van Fleet. Now, musically, do I like Greta Van Fleet? Well, as much as a sort of Led Zepp copy, band could be. I like Led Zeppelin. But I gotta be honest, when bands copy another band that much, it's a little bit like when you go to one of those cheap waxwork museums and you look at that and go, is that supposed to be David Beckham? Oh my God, there's something not quite right. Or if you watch The Polar Express, if you watch The Polar Express and you've looked into the dead eyes of Tom Hanks, this Greta Van Fleet have the dead eyes of Tom Hanks all over them. For me, musically, it's all not quite right. But the poserishness doesn't really become apparent until I put the video on of them. Now for this video, my research was watch a Greta Van Fleet video, which I did. So I put this video on and there they are, some bloke with long hair walking up a big rock. He's out in the desert somewhere. He's climbing up a big rock. Now we know that Jim Morrison, who was a bloody bit of a poser himself, they would have gone out into the desert to drop acid. And they would have all got round and he was going, I'm riding the stake, man, Now, Greta Van Fleet, I don't believe in doing that. I believe they've been driven out into the desert to make this video. So there is this guitar bloke. Now, the bass player and the drummer, I can't tell them apart in Greta Van Fleet. Two, you know, they look like two upper middle class kids with long hair. You know, got bought a Les Paul when they were like 10 years old. You know, and don't listen to all those things. You know, all that hip hop that your friends at school are listening to. No, go through my record collection. And there they are. Oh, they're definitely not copy them. So you know, they're kids. They look like little kids. This bloke walks up this rock, and then he finds a jack plug, and he plugs his guitar into the rock. Right, now if Judas Priest did that, absolutely fine. But not these kids. You ain't playing through a rock, mate. Straight away, you're posing. Right? That's not real. None of it's real. They go into their COD Jimmy Page licks, and then the singer comes out. And it's the singer I find who's a poser. Because if you set yourself up to be the next Led Zeppelin, right? Robert Plant is 6'2". He's got a mane of blonde hair, which in the right light looks like a supernova. Okay? He's incredibly chiseled and good looking. Bare-chested. Going down to a specially made pair of jeans. I can tell you, you know, that I think Robert's trousers they're not, he doesn't go to bloody no, Marks and Spencer's and just get some trousers like I have to. No, his trousers are made. And let's just say his trousers are made to accommodate the heart of the beast, which is located in his trousers. And so he is a towering figure of masculinity. I touch a Farrah Fawcett Majors, I admit. But on the whole, he's a towering figure of masculinity. And then this little monkey-like boy just jumps on stage instead. And there he is jumping around with his shoulders. He hasn't got manly shoulders. They're too short, you know. He's in there and he's got his little bouncy head. It's like Leo Sayers fronting Led Zeppelin to me. Bouncing around, being all like gender non-specific, which is no problem. I mean, Robert was gender non-specific. No, he wasn't. There was no lady in that audience watching Song Remains the Same going, I bet that bloke's non-binary. Nobody was doing that. There's nothing wrong with being non-binary, by the way. Right? But if you're non-binary, don't rip off Led Zeppelin. Right? Because if you're going to copy everything that they do, but then go, yeah, when it comes to being a big manly frontman and doing all that, I'm just not going to do that. Why? Because I'm a little monkey boy. Okay? They're posers, they're posing. It's like, you know, posh kids in a posh school have said, could we do a Led Zeppelin tribute, sir? Yeah, okay, you could do that. That's what they're like. That's what Greta Van Fleet are like. I get people here going, you know, do you like Greta Van Fleet? No, I don't, right? I don't like The Warning. I don't like Crownlands, and I don't like Greta Van Fleet, okay? I don't like any band that sounds that close to another band, all right? The Warning just sound like generic rock, you know, with a bloody every last bit of danger and excitement, you know, pulled out of it. But they're not posers. I can't think what The Warning would be. They're not posing as anything, are they? They are what they are. But Greta Van Fleet are posers in the worst way. Right, so you understand the sort of the way this one's going to work. You know, this is what you all love, you know. You all love me, you know, just trashing. I don't know why human beings like this so much, and I don't know why I'm so good at it. I seem to be able to do this all day long. I don't work out what I'm going to say. All Tom Hanks' Dead Eyes, all that stuff I just came up with on the spot. That's the bloody genius of me, I'll tell you that now. I ain't a poser. I come with it with Real Deal. You're watching The Real Deal here, you know, as is quite evident. I ain't got a script. I'm just going for it. Right, we're right in the middle of it now. Right, but I have to say in my heart of hearts, I don't know why I mean, Greta Van Fleet, what happens if I meet them? And they'll go, you're the one that said I was like a little posh performing monkey, and I'd have to go, well, yes, but you are to me. But I don't hate you. I love you because I love everybody. I love everybody. And all I want to do is spread love to everybody. And one of the people I want to spread love to, not hate, but love. I don't want to create a divisive world, okay? But all of these people are very, very rich. And so I think this is part of the deal of them being rich. When I'm as rich as any of these, and somebody wants to come on and say I'm a performing monkey, or why has he got that really pathetic Hulk Hogan moustache going on there? Who does he think he is? Because he had bloody Lemmy. He looks like some bloody old professor bloke who's decided to, you know, have not even a midlife crisis, probably an end-life crisis, and grow a Hulk Hogan moustache. I mean, he probably inherited it from Hulk Hogan when he died, you know, because he was all bloody right-wing, wasn't he? Probably watched Andy, you know, Andy's like that, but his politics all dubious. He's got dangerous politics, that Andy is, and I bet Hulk Hogan passed it on to him. You can have it, you can have Andy. See, I can do it for myself. I can do it all day. I can do it to anybody, right? You don't try and put me down in the comments. Right, don't try and put me down in the comments. You're only going to come off worse. Right, but you'll never beat me at putting myself down. I hate myself. You know, I'm a musician. This is part of the deal. You know. But one person I'm about to, you know, this there is a little bit of love in every one of these descriptions here. There's a little bit of love. A little bit of empathy. I know you don't believe it. You live in a black and white world of rights and wrongs, don't you? The world's not like that. It's more complex, you fool. Right? So, you know, you can have a great artist who's done some incredible stuff, but he's also a poser, and in a way, not really in the league that everybody thinks he's in. And that is where he's a poser. He's at number 9. Number 9 is a bloke that will get mentioned in the same level as a Sting or a Peter Gabriel or a Kate Bush, and he believes he should be in there with that group, but he shouldn't. He shouldn't. It's Paul Weller. Weller, ooh. So Paul Weller, right? The Jam are great. The Jam are great. Now, what are the Jam? The Jam come out of that sort of new wave post-punk British thing going on. A lot of the punks were getting into reggae, and a lot of them were getting into the sort of mod thing. You know, they were going back and listening to The Who, watching or listening to Quadrophenia, and they were getting into that aesthetic, you know. And the Jam, they're like that. You know, bit punky, touch of the Kinks, touch of the Small Faces, you know. They're like that, but they wrote some great songs, and Paul Weller did write some great songs. And back then, I really loved the Jam. And I went round my friend's house, who was a girl. I had a friend who was a girl at that point. You know, the prog hadn't really kicked in by that point. And she got a copy of Smash Hits. And I picked it up, and it said, Paul Weller, 10 favourite guitar players. Now, this could have been the beginning of me going, oh, I want to know that. It's the list there of 10. I looked at all the guitarists. It's all people like Pete Townsend. They were all crap guitarists. I'm there going, where's Carlos Santana? You know, where's all the brilliant, where's Gary Moore? None of that. And then in the list at some point, Paul Weller had put himself in the list of greatest guitarists. Right? Now, if he could do a guitar solo, if he was that would still be wrong. Even if Gary Moore had been in there and put himself in the list, I would have gone off Gary Moore at that point. Paul Weller had done that, and he's a crap guitar player. He then leaves, and he creates a band called the Star Council, one of the most vacuous, just sort of commercial pop, you know, and a really awful band that really, for me, is the nadir, if I can use such a word in the video like this, it's the nadir of that British cod soul. Right, it begins with Star Council, then you get Sade, and it ends with Simply Red. You know, it's soul without the soul. There's no soul to it whatsoever. And then in the early 90s, he goes solo and seems to win over a certain gap in the market. It's people who've got no personality whatsoever. They're the ones who are going to like Paul Weller. You know, it's people that, you know, they like music, and they, you know, they can appreciate the fact that people can play and he writes a song, and, you know, but none of it is excellent. It's just competent for me. Paul Weller makes really competent albums. There's even tracks I like by him on some of his solo albums. you know. But when people wax on about Wild Wild Wood or whatever it was, when me and everyone thought that was the greatest song, I'm like thinking, just go back and listen to bloody Steve Winwood and Traffic, or just go back, because this is not the same as Peter Gabriel doing Sledgehammer. Although with different time periods, you know, he was doing that Steam thing. But that is a development. Peter Gabriel's travelled to get to that, but not Paul Weller. Not Paul Weller. He's a poser. He's a mod poser. That's what he is. He's a hero to people who like Oasis. In other words, people who know nothing about music. Right. I'm now going to move on to number 8. There is a group here. This is the only non-rock band on here. I'm going to tell you a story. I don't care anymore. You know, now I'm making my living out of YouTube. I don't care anymore. I'll say what I think, and I'm going to just. This is the truth, right? There's a band, and I love them. Their debut album was groundbreaking, and they really are not a Paul Weller band. This is a band that really changed the face of British music. It's a band called The Streets. The Streets really came out and laid the groundwork for sort of what we could call British rap, where you rap in a sort of English accent, usually a Cockney accent. Now, The Streets, I have a personal connection to. And I'm going to tell you the story of why I think that the guy behind The Streets, Mike Skinner, although a brilliant artist and you know, an influential and important artist, is also a bit of a poser. Well, when I say a bit, he's more than a bit of a poser. So, as some of you may know, back in the early 2000s, I got involved with an organisation called Punch Records, and Punch Records was it was a community arts programme trying to develop urban music in certain towns, mainly Birmingham. And I started working with a lot of you know, poor kids and trying to develop their hip hop and rap skills. I know this seems hard to believe, but I did, and I played my role in organising the production aspects of that and going in and working with these kids and trying to make records with them that they would then take away and play on the pirate radio stations that were happening at that time. This is in the early sort of UK garage era. I was connected into that as well. And at some point, the Punch Record guys turned up and he said, there's a band that's coming out of Birmingham called The Streets, and they're really blowing up. Now, I then got passed on a CD, and there was loads of these CDs getting passed around. This one was actually called Urban Pirate Material. I think it was something like that. Their debut album are by The Streets. And they thought that they'd grabbed the band, and I got put with, because I was doing so much hip-hop production, especially sort of garage production, and they thought I could handle the sort of this new emerging UK hip-hop rap thing. I got put with these two rappers that had been in The Streets, and they told me what happened. That there was this group in The Streets, it's really started to blow up. But for some reason, then I can't remember why, they'd split up, and the two rappers came my way, and their old producer, Mike, went that way. Now, these rappers were virtuoso rappers. They were serious rappers. They'd come up listening to Tribe Called Quest, Busta Rhymes, all the heavyweights, and they could really rap. And they said, as The Streets, they were sat down one day, and they're watching, some music program on the UK TV, and Blur come out with the tune Park Life. And Blur, who were in that lineage from the Jam, was his name Phil Daniels? I think it's Phil Daniels. They got the bloke that was in Quadrophenia, and they've got him walking around a park talking about Park Life in a Cockney accent. He's talking, right? He's talking, very influenced really by Ian Jury, okay? And these Streets guys are watching it, and when they go, this is rap, isn't it? Yeah, it's rap, isn't it? But it's like British rap, isn't it? Yeah, it's like British rap. And they went, oh my God, Blur's they're just gonna kill with this. Oh my God. And they said they actually wait for the next record to come out, which was Girls and Boys. And when they didn't do that, they decided to lift wholesale their style from Blur. Right, there's poser point number one. Anyone with a brain will realise that the first Streets album is just park life writ large. Now, these rappers that I were working with, they had their own voice. They were proper rappers. They understood all that. Mike, however, was the producer. He went off, and he now steps forward to do the rapping, which was a shock. And my guys were saying, you know, he's rapping now. So when the first album came out, I was quite surprised to find out that a sort of quite middle class, you know, white guy from Birmingham was rapping about the things he was rapping about in a Cockney accent. He was either just naturally had a Cockney accent, or he really had wholesale just copied Park Life. So that's who I've got at number 8, is Mike Skinner from the Streets. Right. At number 7 on this list, we have, and this is a band that, there's some of the bands on here. Well, no, probably it was Greta Van Fleet, but even more so, all my life, people have been going up saying, what do you think of this band? Are they prog? And I always feel like I don't care whether they're prog or not. I'll tell you what they are, posers. That's Muse. I know, I know my audience. Up until now, they've all been laughing along, haven't you? No worries there. Most of you are happy. Now I've said Muse are posers. Why do I think they're posers? Well, for a start, the main bloke, you know, old Jeff Buckley copier, the main guy, his dad was in the Tornadoes. He's one of those Nepo baby types, you know, and Muse have that written all over. You know, you always feel like the labels are letting them off because they come from a certain place. And I know I've got a chip on my shoulder, right? I haven't got my chip on my shoulder for the poshies because of me. It's nothing to do with that. I developed this when I was teaching kids music, and I was having to stand in front of classes of kids trying to explain for them how to get into the music industry. And so many conversations when we were studying artists and case studies would end up with me going, well, you know, you just don't stand a chance, do you? Because you know you're not posh enough. You are. You'd point over to the kid that lived in a stately home. Literally, there would be someone in a stately home, and as soon as they left, they carried on doing their music. Whereas the poor kids that had to just give up and, you know, go and get an apprenticeship doing plastering or something like that, or you know, end up, you know, taking drugs. You know, there's one guy that I see, he's a lovely guy, and I know he's ensconced in a whole underworld of druggery. Oh, poor kid. So although these videos are a joke, they come from a certain moral place. That's why I'm always having to go at the poshies, because yeah, it's a lot easier for your poshie, this industry. There's just no two ways about it. And Muse strike me like that, right? And it's so indebted to are they greater than the sum of their parts? Right, there's this cod classical, we're going to do everything in the harmonic minor sound. Right, there's the Jeff Buckley-esque vocals. There's the sort of Queen-like influence, you know, the histrionics of Queen, but without the tongue-in-cheekness and campness. And so, the only tune I like is when they do the cover of the Nina Simone tune. I don't think Nina Simone tune did a cover of it. Which one's that one? And in the sky, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm feeling good. Is that what it's called? I'm feeling good. A good 6/8. You put a heavy riff to it. You know, it's a cover version already. Nina Simone. This is the thing. Nina Simone's already done the work. She's already done the work. She's already transmitted what is a sort of light pop song into something heavy. Muse, you don't need to do it again. You're just going, yeah, look, it is. You can make it. Yeah, we know. Nina Simone's already done it. Even with that one, which I quite like because it's not their tune. But all that sort of, he's a poser. He's a poser. It's not as heavyweight as they make out. That's the posiness in Muse. They're a pop band, right? They're a pop band. Right, some of the later albums I like. When they went funky, I like some of that stuff, experimenting. I'm not saying I don't like Muse. But if you really start to analyse it, it's not as heavy as they would like you to think it is. And I think now they're old, and they are now moving into the mist of time, and we can sort of see them objectively. Nobody's talking about them anymore. It's not going to stick, right? It was a big pose. Right, at number 6, there's nothing that winds me up more than some white middle-class teenager moaning about the fact that they're a white middle-class teenager. And when I see bands who like play to those kids, and so they do a music video, and that music video starts off with, say, you know, some kid and he's in his huge bedroom, way bigger than the bedroom I had when I was a kid. I had to share my brother, and it was a tiny bedroom. It really was. But you see some kid in their huge bedroom with all their rock posters, and they're sat there, and their mum's giving them the money to go on to one of them, you know, rock catalogues, and they bought all the t-shirts with the spiky writing on, and they've got the face piercings, and they're sitting there feeling glum, right, because they're white and middle class, and their mum and dad loves them, and they're supported. Okay, now that lot, before they got grabbed by the whole sort of trans thing. Now, I support real people with trans issues. I really do, and I have done all my life. But I did become aware also there was a certain contingent when I was teaching who were basically, a decade or so before, would have loved Linkin Park. The world's a complex place. I tell you this now, and there's all sorts of reasons why people do things, and you cannot just boil it down to one thing. Linkin Park, I mean, I'm starting to talk, but they may have given a focus, you know, to a certain sort of disenfranchised middle class teenager, which is no longer there. So maybe I should be, you know, championing what they've done. I suppose Linkin Park. I don't know, but that moaniness. Now, some bands who go for that market, they're not so moany themselves, but one band that is bloody moany is, of course, Linkin Park, who I find it's almost like whatever Nirvana did, or Chris Cornell in Soundgarden, whatever they bottled up that appealed so much to those types of kids, okay? And I loved Soundgarden at the time. I really loved them, but I can't listen to them now. Musically, it's amazing. Matt Cameron's drumming is amazing. Kim Thiel's guitar riff's amazing. The songwriting's incredible. I can't listen to it because it's so depressing and moany. Now, with Chris Cornell, you know, I think he's a bit too moany as well. I really do. Greatest rock singer of all time. Now, Chester Bennington, he was friends with old Chris Cornell. I went to see Chris Cornell live once, and it's quite incredible. It was in London. And he gets halfway through the set, and he goes, I've got a guest. And Chester comes on with him. And they're on stage together singing. And we were right down the front. I was with my wife, and I was with my daughter, who was in my wife's belly. So I'm there, you know, we're down the front, and she's trying to look after her. It wasn't particularly moshy or anything. It was just, we were down the front. So I must have been 6-8 foot away from them, watching them both sing. And Chris Cornell was miserable, but my God, he could sing. Chester he had the mic up against him, and he was screaming as loud as he could. Right bloody noise it was. And Chris Cornell was holding his mic like bloody Frank Sinatra. He had it down here. So it was unbelievable. And I thought there was a difference. I can't explain this. I feel that Linkin Park are that second wave of rock bands that was there to really consciously brush up teenage middle class privileged angst, and they embody it. And it seems unfair to call them posers now, because of course, as I arrive here following the story of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, and him, Chris Cornell, you know, dying in very strange circumstances in a hotel after a Soundgarden gig, and then Chester, the same thing happens a few months later, and I was there following all this at the time. But I think it's because they uncovered something and they were going down a certain avenue. It's very fishy to me. I don't want to say any more about it. In fact, I wish I hadn't put them on the list now because I hadn't thought about this. All I thought of was a load of blokes in like white, in black shirts with the things copped off, jumping up and down, going, that's what I thought. I'm moving on from here. I'm going to get onto a safer territory. These videos are supposed to be funny, but again, yin and yang. Right? The reason why these videos work, the reason why I do them, because there's sometimes I will haphazardly start to go to something which isn't what the video's about. I'm going towards something there, and I feel, even I'm thinking, I'll just stop, Andy, and back off and just get back on track, because the world's far more complex than you think. That's the underlying theme of this, is the world is more complex than you think. Right? It's not about black and white. None of this is about black and white, but that's me really talking to you there. You're here because this is supposed to be funny. But within this, once we just get a list of bloody posers down like this and start to explore it, it could take us all over the bloody place. And this one's about to take us into the world of YouTubing, because at number 5, I have The Darkness. Now, I don't know whether it's on this video because I've lost all the files, so I no longer have my intro video and my outro video. I used to have an intro video that had Justin Hawkins talking to my friend Danny Rabin, and they mentioned me, but Justin Hawkins doesn't know who I am. And then it cuts to Sting, amazing, one of my favourite musicians, and he doesn't know who I am. So I'm doing that sort of tongue-in-cheek, introducing myself from a point of view of people who don't know who I am. Justin Hawkins doesn't know who I am. Now, that upsets me a little bit, I've got to be honest, because when Danny Sapko got in touch, the YouTube bass player, and I said, how did you know about me? And he goes, oh, Justin Hawkins told me about you. So I had about a couple of weeks, I go walking around thinking, Justin Hawkins watches me? That's amazing. Oh, he would do, really. And I was all building up a sort of a sort of bit of a story, that he's quite a good YouTuber, and I am the esoteric YouTuber, I'm the source of so much ingenuity and innovation in terms of music YouTubing. I've pioneered so much here. And I thought Justin Hawkins has obviously, taken some inspiration from my YouTube channel here. And I was quite proud of that. So that when Danny Rabin happens to be on some bloody boat playing a whole bunch of vacuous jazz fusion, to a whole bunch of old bloody nobodies, it's not bloody Carry On Cruising, is it? It's bloody, no carry on with that. I've never been asked to be on one of them cruise to the prog edge or cruise to fusion or whatever he was that they were on. But anyway, he happens to be on a boat with Justin Hawkins, so of course he has to make friends with him, and they sit down to have a chat, don't they? And then he says, do you know Andy Edwards? And Justin Hawkins goes, no, I've never heard of him. I thought, what? Hang on. Rang up Danny Sapko. He goes, well, I thought it was him who told me about you. I thought. Yeah, you were just saying this, weren't you? To bring me up and then drop me down. So all this here, all this YouTube stuff that's going on that you don't know about, as we're all trying to claw. There's a big community there's a big community within the music YouTubers. I tell you, we'll look after each other. I have to thank everybody. When my channel went down, they all stepped in. It was so much love there. But you got to remember, even within that, it's still like the music industry. So when some bloke goes over 100,000 views, he's suddenly got his silver plaque, and I'm sat here thinking, bloody hell, here I am, reinventing music YouTubing on a daily basis. Coming up with new ideas left, right and centre, right? Bringing in so many different abstract influences, surrealism, all the stuff that I've done. I ain't a poser, right? I don't just do what everyone else does. I'm creating my own thing here, right? Right, so, when some bloke goes and gets 150,000 subscribers, I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? Well, you like Marmite, Andy, that's the thing. There's a lot of people watching. Yeah, I know a bloody lot of people watch me, but they haven't subscribed. And here we are halfway down the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe now. Once I get to 100,000, the next landmark's 1 million. I'm never going to get to 1 million. It's never going to happen. I'm happy with that. Right? Unless I happen to stumble on something that is really bloody, maybe that would happen. But I think, what happened to Rick Beato, where he just goes on Facebook and he sticks up his son having perfect pictures, and he looks and goes, oh my God, there's like 29 million people who watch this. That's like a fluke. That doesn't happen to you in the industry. That's a fluke. Most people who get into the industry, it's because it's a fluke. Then they sit there going, how the hell did this happen? And it's whether you can capitalise on the fluke. I haven't got here by fluking. I've got here through bloody massive creativity and unrelenting bloody, you know, video, never stop. That's how I've done it. Like Sisyphus carrying that rock up a hill. That's what I am. Now, Justin Hawkins, here he comes. Justin Hawkins once again. I don't care now because, you know, there was a time when I thought maybe Justin might have me on his channel. Okay? He might have, because I'm a massive fan of Justin's channel. He's actually been an influence on me. He's one of the guys, as far as I'm concerned, because he brings a humour in it. And it's not just a normal humour, it's British humour. Right? Now, if there's any humour in this bit about Justin Hawkins, it's down very deep. Right? Because if you look at my face, are full of ire. Ire. I-R-E. Ire. That's what I am at the moment. I'm not happy. Right? I'm a fan. I'm a fan of The Darkness. I like them. I think they're bloody brilliant. I'm a fan of Justin Hawkins. I'm not having a go at them. But they're bloody posers. This has to be said. They know they're posers. He is a British self-parodying poser. Okay? That's what he is. He's posing. He is pretending to be something he's not. But in not being it, he is it. Right? But so in doing that, Justin Hawkins not only celebrates, but lampoons at the same time. And once you do that, the pomposity that exists in heavy rock, which always has to be punctured, right? It has to be punctured, and so often it does puncture it. This is the genius of Dave Lee Roth, because Dave Lee Roth is at once it and he punctures it. Now, the British rock groups, obviously we have the best British rock groups, whether it's Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or Deep Purple. But I would say the only frontman out of, say, Robert Plant and Ian Gillan and David Coverdale, they have all got a wistful self-knowing. All of them have. They are all able to see the ridiculousness of themselves. But Ozzy Osbourne was really able to puncture it, right? And that is why he's come out as a genius, unlike Muse. They're going to talk about him for the rest of the time. Now, the thing I liked about The Darkness is when they emerged, there was a certain snottiness within the British music scene, which they just... I like them, right? I like them. So they are their own thing. But they are a bunch of bloody posers, right? They pretend. It's almost like they're a brilliant rock band because they pretend to be a brilliant rock band. They have the freedom to go, what do brilliant rock bands do? They do this, sing up really high, wear ridiculous clothes, set fire to things, sing about ridiculous spaceships full of voluptuous women or whatever, that, you know, and they do that. And they're not scared to do that. So in knowing that they're not that and pretending to be it, they become it. A bit like a YouTuber being incredibly arrogant, just feels a bit like that. But whether people will gather that or not, I don't know. But the thing, the people who don't know it, who are then put into the comments, they're obvious black and white. This is the theme about this: is do you want to get the nuance or not? But those of you who won't get it and are in the comments now, you've got to understand. Even before I put my comment on your comment, right? Okay. You're not the greatest YouTuber. Mary Spender's way better than you. She never boasts like you are. What are you boasting for? When you do that, I'll be laughing just to read it. And I hope some of you will be laughing too. Because it's like a little bit of a trap I've let, haven't I? And in that, I do become the greatest YouTuber of all time. You see? Do you understand? Like The Darkness. So, although I've got you at number 4, Mr. Hawkins, Justin Hawkins, right? If you are watching this now and you are aware of me, I would like to come on your channel, please, because I'm at 85,000 subscribers, right? I might just be able to squeeze 10, 12 out of an appearance on your channel, okay? I will give you entertainment like you won't believe, Right, go and check me out on Rick Beato. I'm up at 600, 700,000 views on that video. Nobody knows who I am, right? He's interviewed bloody famous and all sorts of people, and they've got half the views. There's no two ways about it, Justin, right? Whatever you want to talk about, any subject matter, I know it all. I am a know-all, and I know it all. So, Justin, this bit is me appealing to you with your English gentleman humour, your subtle self-parodizations, your brilliant rock music, which has everything that great rock music should have, killer songwriting, great playing, but also your tongue is in your cheek the whole time. Unlike the tongues of the gentleman in the next band, because at number 4 I've got Motley Crue. Now their tongues have probably been all over the bloody place, really. Think about it. And so, you know, you could say, you know, I'm not an envious man, I'm not jealous, but if I was to be jealous, I'd probably be jealous of Motley Crue's tongues, because not only have they been all around, but they've also tittle-tattled in all sorts of various books, biographies. They've traded on the fact that they are a shite rock band, but they get up to no good. We get up to no good, we're naughty boys, we are naughty boys. We're bad influences. Motley Crue are not a bad band, they're okay. They're one of the many sort of vacuous hair rock bands that emerged in the 1980s, or, you know, somewhere between Van Halen and Kiss. But musically erring more towards Kiss than Van Halen. Right. Some of these bands had great instrumentalists in, great guitar players, and they really weaved some interesting music underneath all the sort of bravado and silliness. And as I've said, I enjoy silliness, you know. So a hair metal band like White Snake in 1987, that's a masterpiece. Motley Crue, right, let's give them their due. Early 80s, when they bring that first album, is it called Shout at the Devil? My Motley Crue knowledge is limited. I'm a jazz guy and a prog guy, but you'll appreciate, I know a little bit about them. Motley Crue's first album is great. It's really great. It's got a punky aspect to it. You know, Tommy Lee's a great drummer. He's solid. Mick Mars is an interesting guitar player. Vince Neil's singing is a little bit bloody, you know, Donald Duck on helium thing, you know. But it is what it is. And then Nicky Sixx, I don't think he's just there for the bloody white stripe and the old Adam Ant going across his face. The first album I quite like, it's quite good. Then they fall into something that is really quite tepid. All right. But they're there, they're on the scene. At that point, they're on the scene. They're one of the bands on the scene, aren't they? And they do their thing. Guns N' Roses come out in 1986. They then change their style. They do Dr. Feelgood, which really is they're trying to write Welcome to the Jungle over and over again. And on the track Dr. Feelgood's Kickstart the Heart. Kickstart Thy Heart. That's how we say it in England. Kickstart My Heart. Those two songs are... They're in the pantheon of great rock songs. I'll give them that too. But the rest of it's shite. Girls, girls, girls. You know, smoking in the back. Oh, it's all bloody rubbish. Right? But there they are going around, taking loads of drunks, getting drunk, killing people by accident, having sex with loads of ladies. Right? And where most bands obey what goes on the road stays on the road, not Motley Crue. At some point, once they have really got to the lowest point and they've got rid of Vince Neil and they get some other bloke in and they then try and copy the grunge bands, and it's bloody awful. They should have then gone into obscurity, and we should be mentioning them in the same breath as, I don't know, who could it be from that time? I don't know, I want to say Wasp or Warrant or somebody like that. I don't know. Who would it be? Then they bring out that book, The Dirt. And suddenly, all this bad behaviour starts to get celebrated. Suddenly, the morals change, especially in the 90s with the sort of lad thing that's going on, especially in my country, the lad culture. Now all this stuff's looked down upon again. You know, the moral gaze has become more stricter. But Motley Crue were able to utilise this. And eventually that's run up to their film, The Dirt, which is on Netflix. I put that on once and I had to switch it off straight away. Because this is pretentious poseriness at the highest order. Motley Crue. Right? They swapped being themselves, which is an average hair metal, an average hair metal band of the 1980s. They swapped that to being posers to themselves. I was watching Tommy Lee being interviewed. The guy's bloody about 70 years old now, isn't he? He's sat there, tattoos all over him, stick thin, right, telling stories about, like an old man with his hair dyed black, right, sat there telling stories about how bad they were when they toured with Ozzy Osbourne and how Sharon Osbourne had to come over and stop their naughtiness. Yeah. But Sharon and Ozzy are the real deal, aren't they? That's the thing, isn't it? So if Sharon was stopping it, it wasn't because she was a fuddy-duddy, was it? No. It's because there was more at stake. Your silliness. Then your stupid, let's push the moral boat of outrage out there so that we can make money out of that and we'll get known as the worst rock band. Well, I'll tell you what, I've known rock bands. Right, I've known people tell me stories of being bands that are like... They're way worse than Motley Crue. But they can't tell them, can they? Now, say you're Motley Crue and you become you're posing at being what you are. A parody of it. How much worse would it then to pose at being Motley Crue? And that's what we got at number 3. Poison. Poison, I didn't want to mention the name, but because I knew that for me, the most poserish of all those bands, the hair metal bands, because poseriness seems to go with them, and we could pull out so many different bands from that period, couldn't we, that are posers. They're all bloody posers in a way. So I think Poison are there as poster boys to that thing. They pose at being Motley Crue. Right? They're probably better musicians. They're probably better songwriters, actually, to be honest. They've probably got more about them. But we feel that they've put that away a little bit, And they're not just a bunch of chancing lads, going around and destroying stuff. I'm sure they have their sort of hedonistic thrills, but it's been kept much more under control. They really are posers, aren't they? I don't want to talk about them too much because Poison, everything I'm going to say about Poison, I've just said about Motley Crue. But that's who I've got at number 3. Right? So we're getting to the top 2 now. Okay, so at number 2. What is not being a poser? Okay? It's hard to not be a poser. To not be a poser, you've got to be your authentic self. You've got to be the real deal, haven't you? And that means... not standing up nicely behind your guitar solos or your clever songwriting or your beautiful hair or your makeup and your cheekbones or your looks or anything like that. It's nothing about that, is it? It's about you getting up there and being you. And that is represented, I think, by the genre punk. And I think that punk almost bakes into itself that you're not a poser. Okay? Patti Smith, can't stick her. There she is, stood there strumming her power chords away, talking about horses endlessly. I hate it. But she's not a poser, she's not pretending to be, and she's not posing. She's not strutting around the stage. She just does nothing that's posery. Okay? New York Dolls, little bit of posering going on, Ramones. It's all a little bit there for me, a little bit of poseriness, but pretentious, yes. But I could have put the Ramones in, actually. But they're not the king of poseriness that we have in the world of punk. So here in the UK, once us British punk bands spot the poseriness of the sort of intellectual college lot that were doing punk in America, we get the Sex Pistols, working class rock band. We get the Damned, we get the Stranglers, working class rock bands. Straight down the line, this is what we do. And they're all completely different. The Clash then come in. Now, Strummer has a little bit of poseriness coming in. They get on their berries and they'll start to dress like, South American bloody communist freedom fighters. I don't know. It's all, and punk starts to get all a bit posery. The record companies accept it. And in amongst all that, we get a band emerge, which almost like the top of the pops smash hits version of punk in its Generation X, with their lead singer, Billy Idol. Now, for me, Billy Idol is the great punk rock poser. A good-looking bloke, no Mohicans, nothing like that. Nice blonde spiky hair. And he doesn't have that sort of nihilist, sarcastic worldview of a John Lydon, sneering. He doesn't sneer. That's not the way he proves he's punk. No. Right? He doesn't have this fake goth sort of the damn David Valiant thing coming out. He doesn't do all that camp thing which is ridiculous, right? None of that. He doesn't sing about the most dodgiest, weird stuff and just explore the darkest sides like the Stranglers. No, he doesn't do that. The punk aspect, the thing that shocks, the thing that represents Billy Idol as countercultural and being against the bloody establishment is the fact that he does this with his lip. It's that. Now, when my daughter, you've seen the child Grace who comes on and sings, when she was about 2, she started to go all the time. She loved it. And I don't know why she started doing it, but I think it was just a way of spoiling photographs, So we'd have a family photograph and she'd sit there, 2 or 3, a natural punk, if any there was one, my daughter Grace. So does it say, everybody smile, and she go. And I started to call this the Billy Idol. So I would say, Grace, don't do a Billy Idol, please. We're trying to take a photo. No, Grace, stop doing a Billy Idol. It was like that. And so Billy Idol took on this sort of almost cartoonish, toddler-esque aspect to him. Now, in the 1980s, he has a solo career where he traverses from punk right over to Motley Crue territory. Those songs like Rebel Yell and all that, they're bloody brilliant songs. And I like Billy Idol. Steve Stevens is a bloody brilliant guitarist, But he is a bloody poser, isn't he? So that's who we've got at number 2. So before we get to number 1 with the greatest poser in the history of rock music, let's just go through this again. At number 10, I got Greta Van Fleet. I quite like their music, just gets on my nerves because it's just Cod Zeppelin, but I like Led Zeppelin. Paul Weller, a couple of songs I like. The Streets, very important band actually, but posers nonetheless. Muse, I don't really like Muse, although there's some later stuff that's not so well known when they get funky, I quite like that. Linkin Park, can't stick them. The Darkest, really like their stuff. Motley Crue, smattering of stuff I like. Poison, I don't know. Never really listened to them, don't know what they're like. Billy Idol, yeah. I like his 80s hair metal stuff quite a lot. I think he's great. So I'm not against this. Isn't hate. They're just posers. The guy I have at number 1, I love his stuff. I think he's bloody brilliant. And I respect the guy and I want to be like him, but I'm not like him. He's older than me, I think, a couple of years older. And he's an incredibly handsome, talented musician. He's got it all. Great guitar player, great singer, writes really great songs, bought his first album when it came out, loved it. But God, is this guy a poser? Who is it? Lenny Kravitz. Yeah, we're talking Kravitz here. Almost like the poster boy of poseriness. Is he a rock star? Is he a soul star? Is he a funk star? What is he? He's all of those things. It's all of them, isn't he? He does it all. He's funky, he's rocky, and all that. And even though he's in his 60s, he will still writhe about, won't he? There's a video on YouTube somewhere where he does so much writhing about on some gig that the crotch of his trousers bursts open. Now, unlike me, Kravitz doesn't wear underpants. He doesn't wear pants, you know, as we call them in the United Kingdom. He doesn't wear undergarments. Of course he doesn't bloody underwear. So what comes popping out? What comes popping out? Little Kravitz for all to see. Okay? Now, what did he think when that happened? He loved it, didn't he, old Kravitz? He loved it. Now, I'm going to do something I don't rarely do on a video like this. I'm going to go onto Wikipedia and I'm going to put Lenny Kravitz in because I've had a go at Kravitz before. And I don't want to say the same things over and over again, but I do want to keep it fresh. So I will have a little bit more information because I'm afraid I can't put... So he's born in May 1926, right, in 1964. He's bloody 62 years old. No one should look like that at 62 years old. It's not bloody right. He brought out his debut album Let Love Roar in 1989, which characterised by a blend of rock, funk, reggae, hard rock, soul. See, I've said all that, all the different styles, right? Now, who the hell is this chap? Kravitz was born on May the 26th, 1964. So he's only just turned 62. He had his birthday a few weeks back in New York and was the only child. He's so bloody obviously an only child of NBC television news producer Cy Kravitz, born 1924 to 2005, and the actress Roxy Roker. Right now, Roxy Roker was in the Jeffersons. This bloke is born. He's in media royalty. Now, what's interesting with Roxy Alberta Roker, okay, is she's born 1929. His dad's born in 1964. So when he's born it's 1924, his parents are in their 40s. They're pretty old, really, if you think about it. So, of course, his wife's good looking. His dad's rich, you know, as Miles Davis famously said about his parents. And so this is why he's so bloody handsome, isn't it? Right? He's also the second cousin of the television weather presenter Al Roker, right? Kravitz was named after his uncle Leonard M. Kravitz, who was a private first class who was killed in action in the Korea War when he was aged 20, while single-handedly holding off a Chinese attack, enabling his platoon to escape. Now, this is the thing with Kravitz. The glory is always there. It's undeniable. Here we go. What are you named after, Leonard? Because you come from a bloody, you know, privileged bloody media family, is it? You were born with all the connections. Well, I'm actually, you know, named after my Uncle Leonard, you know, Leonard Kravitz. That's it. What did he do then? Did he bloody have a load of bloody famous factories or something? And have a million? No, he held off a Chinese attack, enabling most of his platoon to escape in the Korean War. Oh, did he? I can't really grow up with that, you know. Kravitz grew up spending weekdays in the Upper East Side of Manhattan with his parents, attending the PS6 for elementary school and spending weekends at his grandmother Bessie's house at Bedford-Stuyvesant neighbourhood of Brooklyn. And these posh neighbourhoods, you see, the thing is that I'm on Wikipedia, right? Right, but my school's not on there, right? I can't tell what, I mean, what is this? What sort of school is this? It's a public school, so he's not that much of a poshy. But what about his? I don't know. I'm trying to make out he's privileged, aren't I? That's what I always try and do, you know. Anyway, Kravitz. He's a poser, isn't he? I don't have to bloody prove it, do I? But the thing is, he's a poser, but he's a right to be a poser. If I look like Kravitz at 62, I would be posing all over the bloody place. I would. God, he's all that. He's got everything, bloody everything he has. Kravitz. He follows veganism with a primarily raw vegan diet and uses his land in Brazil and the Bahamas to grow his own food. He was voted the most beautiful vegan celebrity of 2022. And you're just watching. I'm not even saying anything now. I'm just seething. He's got a street named after him. It's called Lenny Kravitz Street in France. Bloody Kravitz. I like him. I like all his stuff. I know I shouldn't like it. Liking Kravitz is a bit like liking Jamiroquai. I love Jamiroquai. Right, JK I could have had on this list. He's probably around about 13, 14. JKs. They're all much of a muchness, aren't they? But I love them and I love Kravitz. That's why he's at number 1. Incredible bloke. I've only put him there because I want to bring him down because I'm jealous. So that's the video. We're coming up to the hour point. This camera will shut off, so an hour. Can't do longer than an hour with these new cameras. Sorry for not being in my studio. I had to stay in for a package. The package has now arrived. I am done. What's the time? It's coming up to midday. So I have done my work for today in terms of filming. I now have to get into the editing stage. If you like these stupid videos, please stick a like on this video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you want to know all the things and you're interested in what I do, I'm sure you'll find it out, but there's a whole bunch of links below and you can find out all the things I do. I have a Patreon and memberships and PayPal tip jar. All that's there for you to have a look at. Now, we're done. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.